Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Aaron Bailey, aka Iris Illusion 2020, coming at you with my first ever TikTok live makeup tutorial. So with this, I'm going to show you guys how to achieve some of my makeup looks. I did a poll 2 days ago asking for those what they would want to see, and the mass majority of y'all said you wanted me to do something a little bit more on the subtle side. So I thought today would be a great time to show you guys a simple makeup look, which is doing a smoky eye. And with that, to achieve that, we are going to be using the Profusion Artistry Portfolio on the Go, which has basically everything that you need on the go for only $25. Now we're going to mainly use the shadows from this palette, but I have still my other face powders and such that I'm going to go through, but I'm going to show you my steps, tips, and tricks of how to achieve a lot of my makeup looks, which I've had a lot of compliments of it looking very airbrush, which is just all blending. Now, to start off, I've already prepped my skin with my skincare routine, shave, and everything, so now we're going to head straight into primers. So for today's primers, I'm going to be using a mixture of just a few, but I'm going to worry about the top half first, because when I do my makeup, I want to be sure that the top half of my face is done, and that way none of the fallout reaches underneath and mixes in with the foundations. So today we're going to use the Revlon Color Stay Grip Matte Primer along with the Rimmel Stay Matte Mattifying Primer. So just using a little bit of each, and we are going to prep the top part of my skin. Now with foundations, I love to make sure that my coverages are full because I would like to make sure that my whole canvas is blank to where I can carve out new facial features. So with that, I mix my foundations in a makeshift cushion foundation compact, which I got off of Amazon for about $8. Ignore how disgusting it looks already, but I've been using this for a while now. But with the foundations today, I use a mixture of the Profusion Feel Good Skin in Tan 3. It's a little darker than I am, but it also gives me a bit more color, along with my She Glam Complexion Pro Lasting Matte Foundation in Porcelain, and this Ellen Tracy Full Coverage Liquid Foundation in Fair to Light, is it? Yes. So we're just going to take a little bit of each of these and mix it into the Cushion Foundation Powder Compact. And then taking these Real Techniques facial sponges, and just patting it in there. Now when it comes to foundation, you want to be sure that you are not swiping because you're going to risk it dragging and leaving streaks. So what I do is cover the base part first. And then taking this AOA Studio High Def brush, and we're just going to be sure to pat that in, using little circular motions to spread the foundation, distribute it evenly, getting it as close to the hairline as possible. And that covers the upper half of the head. And now we're going to move on to contouring the temples and the sides, along with highlighting the center. For the contouring, recently I fell in love with this Revolution Cosmetics Super Concealer in 12.5. It's basically a tan color, along with the Revolution Eye Bright Bronzers. This one is Warm Chestnut. Now it is dark, but this just helps to kind of give more definition. And even though we did say we were going to do this to be a little more subtle, I'm going to at least try reducing how heavy I contour with powders just to make it a little more softer. And then, where'd that brush go? Taking my angled fluff brush here, we are going to buff this in. So how you can see where there's a little bit more shadowing compared to one side than the other. And then doing the same thing on the other side. Uh-oh. And if I ever bring it too far, I can always go back over with the foundation brush and just lightly patting that out so that way it kind of reduces how far. And just like that. So our temples and our forehead are contoured. Now moving on to the highlight. And using the same concealer in the shade C1, and then taking this Real Techniques dense buffing brush, it is the Expert Face Brush. I'm going to use this to pat out the highlight. Little circular motions if you have to. And now we're going to be moving on to eyebrows. Now, I will say eyebrows next to eyeliner is like the most difficult part when it comes to makeup. Never stress on it looking exactly even. Brows are sisters, never twins. And half the time mine look like two tenants in the same apartment complex on different floor sections. So with that being said, for my brows, I love using a deep, rich concealer color. This is the L'Oreal Infallible Full Face in Mocha. And then just using a simple slant brush. This is part of the NYX Dip, Shape, and Go. I just love using this brush as my template tool. Any flat edge brush will work just fine. But we're going to take a little bit onto the brush. And as you can see, I do have a definite brow bone, which gives me a good template of where to start. So just going to go up and out, like so. And then following one line parallel to it, up and out. And then just taking it in to fill. And then we're going to take our highlight brush from before, and we're going to feather out the front ends here. Basically like that. And then we're going to do with this to this side. Fingers crossed it comes out as even. But God forbid, symmetry is not my best friend whatsoever. Because this eye is a little bit more lax to where it's kind of heavy. And this eye is just a little bit more wonked. Doesn't help that I also got injured when I was a kid and had a good scar on this side. So sometimes it works, sometimes it don't, but it's actually pretty damn close to being as even as I can get it, so that, and then just buffing out the front ends. Good enough. It's actually as close as I've ever gotten it on the live stream before. And now we're going to take my concoctionary powders that are mixed of airspun powders. It's a mixture of like extra coverage translucent. Sometimes it's got a mixture of honey beige or sometimes naturally neutral. Naturally Neutral has a bit more of a yellow undertone, which I like using more for the summer times to give a more of a tan. While the Honey Beige has more pink undertones, which I love using during the colder times to give that softer pink tone feel. But the Extra Coverage Translucent, a little goes a long way. And to me, I feel like it just sets makeup really nicely. It softens everything, which I love. To dust everything off, I'm going to be using my Simply Bella Beyond Perfection powder in the shade Ivory Bella. And just a big old fluff brush. Just going to take that. Starting off at the contoured areas to give it a little bit more tan color. And just brushing off any of the excess powder. This really helps to kind of soften the makeup, so don't worry about over contouring too much to a degree. This will help just kind of soften everything up, and then you can go lighter on the powder contours to just make things a little bit more reinforced. Now we're going to fill in the brows and clean them up. Now this is just me, but this mango and cocoa butter infused instant sun bronzer from Hard Candy Cosmetics in the shade Cocoa works pretty good as a brow coverage. And just using a flat, dense angle brush, I'm going to take a little bit of that powder. Now, of course, you can use like an eyeshadow or a brow powder. But to me, this really does buff out pretty nicely, especially when you're trying to do that feathered ombre brow where it's lighter in the front but sharp in the back. Taking a flat, fluffy angled eyeshadow brush, we are going to buff out this front end here. And it's okay to bring it closer to the forehead because we're going to use our highlight powder to clean up this middle part and then really enhance the front ends. Second verse. And then cleaning up that front. Oh, case closed. So it may not be as completely even as I can, but excuse me, this is close enough. Nope. Here she is. And then taking a dense packing brush, I'm going to take my SheGlam Skin Focus High Coverage Powder Foundation in Porcelain. Just putting a little on there. Now watch. And it cleans up those front ends really nicely. So this is a good way to use a bronzer that may be too dark, and you can use it as your brow color because the coverage is nice, but it also buffs out easier. And now we're going to do the details. I'm going to be using a Wet n Wild eyeliner pen in deep brown or black brown. And then on the other side. And then for the finer hair details, I'm going to be taking this Ulta Beauty brow pen in chocolate brown. Is that right? Oh, deep. And we're just going to feather out the front hairs a little bit to where it's a little natural-esque, or as close as you can anyway. Taking that same brow brush, I'm just going to be using a cheap LA Colors brow kit, and we're going to take the deeper brown and cover up these back hairs to make it a little bit more blended. Pretty much like that. Oh, I've been practicing with makeup for about almost 10 years now. To be honest, I started off pretty rough using just cheap drugstore makeup like Dollar Tree and everything. Not saying that drugstore is bad, because a mass majority of my collection is made up from drugstore products itself. Then we're going to take a flat edge concealer brush and a light concealer from She Glam in the shade Fair. And we're going to clean up the undersides of these brows. So just put a little on there. This you want to at least try to be a little focused, so pardon me if I'm a little quiet for a second. And then taking a fluffier brush, and we're just going to buff out. Now, a lot of people would be nervous about this step because you're putting basically wet product on top of already powdered skin. As long as you go in with a light touch, it really doesn't look that cakey. I mean, surprisingly, with the amount of powders and stuff I put on, I don't look like I'm as caked or as roughed as I would think. But this just helps to kind of sharpen the brows and highlight it. And then going in with a dense packer brush. Since today we're going to be doing something a little more subtle, I'm going to keep my brow highlight a little bit more subdued rather than going up with straight white. I'm going to take this Lottie London Warm Translucent Powder, taking a little bit of that hair. We're going to pack down this cleanup. And even though it's a translucent, but it adds a little bit of skin warmth to it, so it makes it a little more natural. This is what I would normally do for my daytime brows, which is just brows, cleanup, and a simple translucent powder on top. There we go. With this concealer, it works better as a cleanup. I tried using it as a regular concealer and it kind of cracked. But it works really good as a brow cleanup, in my opinion. And then clean up again. Surprisingly, for a live stream, this is the most symmetrical I've got my brows to look yet. Every other time this one would be a little bit more arched and laxed, and this one would be a little too structured. But I finally got them to look as sisterly as possible. And remember, I also don't have any brow hairs. I shave mine off because it helps me with practice of drawing them on. And I could change up the styles if I want to do something a little more slim for the 20s, or do I want to do something a little more bold for the 70s. But with that, the brows are finished. Now we're going to be moving on to eyes. So, as I said, I did a poll 2 days ago on here in my Facebook and Instagram, and the public has spoken that they want me to do something more subtle. So I thought for a subtle look today, we are going to be doing a smoky eye. And using this Profusion Artistry on the Go Beauty Portfolio, we're going to be using a lot of these neutral tones to achieve this. The inspiration behind this look is going to be similar to Christina Aguilera in Dirty. So it's going to be very grungy, very dark, and then using a black and silver liquid shadow, we're going to do the center of the lid and a little bit on the bottom to give it more of that like wet look. I've tried eye glosses before. It feels disgusting. It feels tacky. I don't care for it. I'd rather use a black and silver liquid shadow to achieve sort of the same effect. Now, when it comes to eyes, I highly recommend a primer or even a concealer, a foundation, because when you put eyeshadows on top of dry powdered skin, you're not going to get the color payoff that you're achieving. It's going to look patchy. It's going to look kind of... But when you have something kind of wet and tacky to put it on, it actually comes across better and you're getting more color for your buck. So with that, I'm going to be using the Profusion Base Pigment in Neutral and a e.l.f. Putty Blush Brush as my primer brush. And a little of this goes a long way. Honestly, you could use a pea-sized dot and this will prime your lid. Now when it comes to a smoky eye, it generally does not always mean using black. It's actually a technique where you're diffusing your colors in a seamless transition where there's no harsh lines, no cut creases or anything. It's a basic blurring effect. But in this case, we are still going to do a traditional smoky eye, which is more neutral tones going from your darkest up to the lightest. And your best friends are going to be fluffy brushes. Now, depending on who you are, some people say don't start off with black. I'm still going to start off with a richer color, so I'm going to be using the color Uproar, which is like a gray brown tone with a real fluffy brush. And just coating this whole lid section. And then taking a crease brush from Wet n Wild, we're going to go in with a lighter tone called Habit. I'm just buffing out this front top part. And using little circular motions to diffuse the colors while still keeping it at a cat eye angle. And then we're going to take a denser brush such as this, and we're going to go in with the black and keep it as close to the lid as possible while slowly buffing it out. And then taking a denser packing brush that's got a little bit of a dark brown on it, just gonna tap along the edges to diffuse that color out. And usually when it comes to shadows, what takes up the most time is the blending. And when it comes to shadows, you don't want to always do the wiper technique. It's either a packing motion or a little circular motions, but in some cases the packing technique can work just as good to help with buffing out, but it also can reduce the amount of colors you have, or the payoff, I should say. And then we're going to take a smaller, denser brush, going in with the black again, and trying to really pack it on the lid. And just going back and forth, make sure it's blended out. Pretty much like that. It's subtle, it's very neutral, and then we're just going to take a little bit of this CoverGirl liquid Expositionist liquid eyeshadow. Put a little on the lid, and then using the finger to kind of just like so. And then we're going to basically do this to this eye. So same steps with prime, prep, and smudge. Okay. Taking that same brush, we're going to use Uproar and a little bit of Fallen just to and buffing out that top part. And then going in with the black. Perfect, strangers. That's pretty damn accurate. And it doesn't have to be as clean and proper because with the smoky eyes, it's not really a clean look half the time. And going back in with that liquid shadow one more time. Pretty much like that. So now we're going to be going down and moving on to the lower half of the face. Going in with the same primers, but I'm also going to do a stick blurring primer on my nose because my nose has a tendency to not grab a hold of makeup as good. So what we're going to do is prime the outer perimeter of the face, and use the stick blurring primer underneath the nose and the eye section. And then I'm also going to take a little bit of the Hard Candy Matte Serum Primer just to kind of give a little bit more coverage on the lower part of the face. Yes, yes, clown emoji, so original. And then taking the blurring stick primer, we're going to do the nose. The under eye. And usually this will help with keeping makeup from sliding off. My nose during the day, especially since I work 8 hours a day at Walmart, this part of my nose has a tendency to lose the makeup throughout the day. But ever since I started doing this using this technique that I got from Michaela, she says use a blurring stick primer on the nose, and it helps to really give the makeup something to grab a hold of. Okay, now moving on to the under eye highlight and nose contour. So we're going to take the same concealer along with C2 of the Revolution Super Concealer. C2 will be more on the outer perimeter of the face. And then using C1 closer to the inner corner, just to brighten the inner corner as well as getting on top of the nose highlight. And using that same Real Techniques brush, we're just going to buff this out. And if you guys have any, at least good makeup questions, I'm more than happy to answer as best as I can. I will admit I'm not a full-on expert, but I can try to answer as best and promptly as I can. Alright, now moving on to the nose contour, which is always so fun to do. But I always love my nose to be as pinched as possible to where I can't breathe. So I'm going to be using another of these Revolution Under Eye Brightening Concealers in the shade Tan. And just like that, basically, it's going to at least be a little lighter than what I normally do. And when it comes to contouring the nose, you don't ever want to go completely parallel with the bridge, because then it's just going to make it look wider. Dependent on the nose shape, I always like going from a V down and then having a straight line across to kind of cut it off and pinch it a little. But I always love it when a nose contour is so pinched that it almost looks like you really can't breathe. Cool. And now we're going to be moving on to the bottom half. So the same foundations as before, we're going to mix them into my little compact here. So the same Profusion, Ellen Tracy, and She Glam. Just mix them in here. And then taking that same sponge as before, just patting it. Now, for most males that do makeup artistry, half the time they have to color correct down here, their beard line. Thankfully mine doesn't show up as much anymore, if at all for that matter. Which is also the reason why I'm such a full coverage girl, to cover up anything. And for those that want to say those smart mouth comments of, well, this is why guys shouldn't be doing makeup. Well, half of your male movie stars do makeup anyway, so well, what difference does it make? They don't look that good all damn day every day, I'll tell you that much. I wish. And then just bringing this down. And especially when you're doing your makeup, you don't ever want to just stop where the face ends, because then it's going to look like an obvious mask. You want to try bringing it down as best as you can. And if it does look too dark, you can always take your highlight, bring it down here a little to kind of mix in. And it works a wonder. To kind of help make it a little bit more seamless. Alright, and now moving on to contouring. So taking the same two contours as before, the dark warm chestnut and C12.5, just going to contour the cheeks. And I'm going to use a lighter touch than what I normally do, since we want to have it to be a little bit more subtle, but I want some definition. And then now that I finally found my brush, it's this H&M Perfecting brush, which is a dense brush. Just going to slowly pull this from the back. And just like that. And then just taking that same brush as before, we're just going to lightly blend and blur. Oh yeah. Good clean contour cheek without it being too harsh. And then taking whatever is left on the brush, I'm just going to do my jawline real quick. It's subtle, but it's enough to leave a mark as a base, basically. It maps out where I'm going to be doing my other contours. And now going in with liquid blushes, I'm going to be using my favorite blushes of all time, which are the Profusion Blush Hour. This is in the shade April Spritz. It's like a fun neutral peach tone. So this is a good universal blush for like any daytime look, or as well as any kind of a subtlety look. Compared. So that way it doesn't leave you looking so dead. Unless that's the kind of look you're going for. Me, I love this blush so much. And I have pretty much all their blushes, from Sangria to Blushing Martini to the Strawberry Daiquiri and Rosé. And just for a little touch of highlights on the cheek, I'm going to be using this About Face Light Lock Highlighter Liquid in the shade Shaken or Stirred, which is this really cute gold tone. Put a little on the back of the hand, and taking a small beauty sponge. This works great as a base for it, because then when you powder it down, you'll have a mapping of where you want your highlights to go. And now, to set the face. Going in with the same powders as before. We are setting every liquid, every cream. And then dusting off before, we're going to use the same Simply Bella Ivory Powder. And now it's time to reinforce our contours and highlights with powders. Starting off with the nose, I'm going to be taking this Eco Tools flat edge brush, flat edge sponge with some of my most highlight powders. One of them is going to be this I'm having a stroke today. This Physicians Formula Bitter Butter Illuminating Powder. Just a little. And then this Fit Me Maybelline Powder in Translucent. Going to draw down the center of the nose. Just like so. And now for the contouring of the nose, I love using a mixture of a dense brush to start off, and then a fluffy brush to kind of diffuse. And for today's contour, I'm going to be using a little bit of... Now this is probably going to joke a lot of y'all. Oops. It is the LA Color Contour Kit. This is simply something you could find at Dollar General or Family Dollar for like $6. But I love like this light grayish tone. And then just taking the fluff brush, we're just going to run along the sides and diffuse this. Just like that. And to clean it up a little more, I'm going to take a simple powder puff and taking my highlight powders, which consist of this e.l.f. Camo Powder in 205 Light. And we're going to just go down the sides of the nose to reinforce that contour to look a little bit more snatched. Or in the words of Michaela, to make it nice and sharp. Close as it's going to get. And now moving on to the under eye highlights. Now this is a new product I've recently started using. It's from a brand called AOA, which you can find at a store in the mall called Miss A, where everything is like a dollar or more. Like it's like a $5 or less or so, but it's a soft pink translucent powder. And then taking my Profusion Flawless powder brush, just going to take some. And most translucent powders are just white, which probably can give off a funny undercast or overcast. But with this being pink, it kind of gives a more natural highlight. And it's a blurring powder, which is great because of my under eyes kind of starting to get a little baggy. But hey, at 31 and looking this good, that is fine by me that I've started now instead of earlier. And just like that. Now for contour, since we are trying to go a little lighter today, I'm just going to take one light dark tone product and then one of my favorites that I've been using. So for my dark contour, I'm going to take this CoverGirl Smoothies in 725 Translucent Tawny, which even though it looks really dark, but it's actually... The good thing about CoverGirl is that a lot of their products are very sheer. This will just add a little definition without it going super carved like I normally do. So we're trying to keep this a little bit more subdued compared to my normal makeup. But if this goes well, I might start doing my live streams on here more often. I normally do it on YouTube, which can either hit or miss, but judging from how many I've seen now, I kind of like it on here. Now for my favorite bronzer of all time, the Buttermelt bronzers from NYX Cosmetics. I know it's backwards because of the phone, but this is in the shade Buttercup. Just watch. Like, the difference is night and day. And just using a light touch, like literally this product you have to use a light touch before going completely overboard. Pardon me. Now doing the jawline. I keep the darker contours towards the back and the neck area. And then we'll buff it out with the Buttermelt bronzer. Now, if I had to take a guess, I would say that the inspiration behind the Buttermelt bronzers had to be from Physicians Formula, because they were known for their butter bronzers with the Manuka honey. This smells roughly the same as it. It's got that buttery scent to it, but it just blends like a dream. And then just taking a little bit of this brush with the powder, we're just going to diffuse the neck area a little bit so that way it's not such a harsh and noticeable line. There have been times where I look in the mirror and I'm like, damn, what the f were you thinking? Okay, now on to blush, my favorite thing. And once again, we're trying to keep it a little bit more subdued. I'm going to be taking a mixture of this Morphe Cheekers stacker that has like this nudie blush to it, and using a Wet n Wild fluff brush. And this will help diffuse out the bronzer a little bit too. But I'm also going to add a little bit of a peach tone just to warm it up a little, because when you're putting like a nude brownish tone on top of the contour, it doesn't warm the face up as much, but it does give it a base to start. So then I'm going to take this Be Pure Essentially Ageless blush. I'm going to be honest, even though it's at Dollar Tree, this I think is a knockoff of the L'Oreal Ageless blushes. But this is in the shade Peachy Peach. Is that right? Oh. Well, it's a peach tone, and just taking it on that blush brush in little circles. And a little on the tip of the nose. I always love doing blush on the nose. It makes it look cute. I haven't tried the blush across the nose yet because I always want to be sure that my contour is really sticking out. And now to kind of clean up the undersides of the face, I'm going to be using this True Match L'Oreal powder in the shade C5 Classic Beige, along with a kind of a denser brush. We're going to take a little bit of that. And we use it on the lower half here, so that way the highlight kind of stands out on its own. But at the same time, that way there's still like a color connection. And now for highlight, for shimmer highlight. Actually, nope, not yet, I forgot. I'm gonna take this big fluff brush with a sheer tint finishing powder from e.l.f. in the shade Light. And we're gonna use this to kind of dust off our baking powder and tie all this in. Cool. Saint Joan of Arc. If you're talking about the French Revolution woman, more power to you. I mean, Joan of Arc being part of the French Revolutionary, leading womankind. And plus, I thought Nikki Doll did a pretty damn good interpretation of Joan of Arc during season 12 of Drag Race with her Capes on the Runway challenge. God, these are... Not that one. So for highlight today, I'm going to be using this Profusion Shimmer Powder with a very light touch. Yeah, ew to you too, Colt. That might have been a little too much, but and then we're going to take a little bit of highlighter from that Morphe Cheekers. Very observant. Yes, I am. There we go. And now we're going to move on to the under eyes. So with under eye, we're going to be using a liquid or a shadow stick from Hard Candy called Lights Out. Whew. I'm doing makeup artistry. What's it look like? I'm going back in with the artistry palette. We're going to be going back in with Perfect Stranger with that denser brush. We're going to smoke out and then taking the fluffier brush here, going to pretty much like that. I'm doing the same on the other side. Like I said, the smoky eye can be pretty simple to do. It's just a matter of going back and forth with blending out the colors. Use a little bit more smolder, so let's go in with the dark brown a little bit. Alright, and then to give it more of what Christina had, we're going to take that same liquid eyeshadow and just prop a little... No. Right in the center there. Pretty much like that. And then for lips, we're also going to stick with more of the nudish storyline. So I'm going to add just a little bit more highlighter using this Winky Lux Rose highlight. There we go. So for today's lips of choice, I'm going to be using a Wet n Wild Liquid Catsuit in the shade Cedar Later. Nope, Toffee Talk. Picasso Pop from CoverGirl's Ultimate lipsticks. And then to top it off, this L'Oreal Paris shade 301 Be Independent, which is going to work as both a gloss and a bit of a finisher. So we're going to use the Toffee Talk as a liquid outline. Now, of course, when I do my lips, I always draw over the Cupid's bow to where it looks like an oval on top and bottom. To me, it just makes it a little easier when it comes to doing the lip styles, but there are times where I will do more of the Cupid's bow, but lately this has been the style I've fallen in love with. And just to add a little highlight in the center, I'm going to take this LA Girl Pro Color Mixing Pigment Foundation in white and just do a little on the back of my hand. And we're going to highlight the center of the lips just to give it a little bit more pout. That way it kind of fades it out a little, and then we're going to take that 303. Awesome. And now on to eyeliner. And because of this being a little bit more grungy, we're not going to worry about doing like the wings and stuff. So I'm going to use my LA Girl or LA Colors liquid eyeliner, literally $1.98 at Walmart. And then while that's a little wet, I'm just going to take that one packer brush. Just like that. And you can see how much of a difference it kind of smokes it out. Wow, it's only been an hour. Not bad. Cool. Now moving on to mascara, I'm going to be using a Glam old favorite, the Essence Princess Lash, and then black, and we're just gonna coat these lashes. Right, and now moving on to lashes. And for today, since we are doing a little bit more of a subtle look, I chose to use these LA Colors Demi Wispy lashes. We're going to use this one as a base lash and then pop it off with these little guys. And that way I can show you guys firsthand how lashes can go. With my lash glues of choice, and I do mean glues, I'm going to be using this Ioni 2-in-1 lash and liner as a base, and then popping on the lashes this Duo black liquid glue. So just holding on with a pair of tweezers. We're going to pop on the glue on the lash band itself first. And that way we can do this Ioni liner while it's drying. Whew. Just like that. And the reason why I'm doing a double stack is because usually a single stack like this you can't really see. I always want a little bit more definition with my lashes, regardless of how subtle the look is going to be. And with this one, we're just going to lay down the liquid glue and then just try to prop it on top. Can't see. Give me 1 second. Where's that damn mirror? I guess the stream was trying to time me out. There we go. Adds a little bit more edge out into that wing. So now we're going to do the other side. Whew. Almost done. The last lash, and then we're just going to finish up with mascara and the finishing touches, and we will be done. May not be completely symmetrical, but that will do for now. And then going over with this Essence Another Volume Mascara Just Better. What I love about this one is it helps to push the lashes together without it like tugging at them. And then normally I would do setting spray, but considering that I'm not really keeping this look on for the day, I'm going to skip that. So the only other thing left is just to put on the hairpiece, which is just this clip-on ponytail from Amazon. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we have finished up our subtle smoky eye makeup tutorial. I can't thank you guys enough for coming along this journey and this being my first TikTok live stream. I had a lot of fun, you know, for the first time. But I hope to maybe continue on, probably once a week, try doing a live stream just to kind of get myself out there. But this is my considered subtle smoky eye tutorial, kind of very early Christina Aguilera dirty with a little bit of edge. But not much else to say, so I guess I'll go film the rest of my TikTok off here and get my video together. And I will see you guys soon. Until then, stay beautiful. Thank you for joining, and I hope to see you guys soon. Until then, love you guys.